everybody, welcome back to the shop, because we are back in the shop today because, well, this old girl's giving us some issues. So if you haven't watched the video, it's been about 6 weeks since we bought this bike at the auction, wrecked in the front, and put it together. Easy fix, not a lot of money, not a lot of time. I'll put a link to the video up above or whatnot, and at the end of the video. And since, so like I said, it's been about 6 weeks. I got about probably 900 miles on it so far, and it's been great. No issues whatsoever. A couple little things, but the other night, the wife and I went down to a little town in Illinois, Savannah, Illinois, about an hour away from us, and we stopped for dinner at this little pub or whatnot. And when we came out and got ready to leave, the bike was running like crap. Throttle response was terrible. It wouldn't make any power up through first gear, but as soon as I hit second gear, it turned on and the bike was fine. But I noticed the check engine light was on. So I continued to ride it, check it out, look at things or whatnot, and we had to stop for construction a couple miles down the road. And when I went to take my turn at the light or whatever, again, the bike made no power. It was just dead in first gear. So, again, as soon as I shifted to second gear, it popped right out of it and ran fine all the way home. The rest of the way is about an hour ride home. I had no cruise control, which is because the check engine light was on. So that kind of sucked, but whatever. So we rode it home, got it home, finally in the garage, put it away, and the next day I came out and pulled the codes out of it. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you quick. Hey guys, just want to interrupt this video quick before we get further into it. When I was editing it, I noticed that I never really explained some of the other issues I was having with this thing prior to the check engine light coming on, because I didn't think it was related, but turns out I think it was. But anyways, one of the biggest things I had with this issue I had was when you start the bike after it's warm, like if you stopped at the bar or something for a burger and a beer, when you went back out to leave, the engine being warm, every once in a while it would backfire through the intake when you started it, and then you had to stop and then restart it. It was always, the throttle response was always poor at that point. It acted like like an old heat-soaked carburetor. The throttle response was just very poor for the first 10 seconds. And then when you went to leave, the bike would cut out just enough where if you're trying to make a corner, at a slow speed, you just get going, it would cough just enough where you kind of wanted to fall over, just the throttle would go away for just a split second. And I assume that was all just hot fuel related, but I don't think it was. Anyways, back to the video. So basically on any 2008 or newer Harley, you can pull the codes out of it by holding down the tripometer button right next to the speedometer here. On mine, the trip is here. On some bikes, they're up here by the clutch. So basically hold that in, turn the key on, and on your speedometer, on the odometer, it says diagnostics. So now that we're in diagnostic mode, basically, again, you use your trip switch to basically toggle through. Press it once, and basically there's different options. P is the first one. If I push and hold for about 2 seconds, there's no codes because I already cleared the codes. So when I did that, I had 2 codes. I had a C1095 and also a C0562. But I already cleared those codes. So let's go back. I think it was this one, SP. Let's check that one. So I got a U1301. We're going to end that. So basically now I'm going to clear that. So we're going to go back to SP. I'm going to push and hold. U1301. I'm going to push and hold. It's going to say clear. Hit it again, and now it's cleared. So like I said, I had those 2 codes, and both those codes come up to The first one says it's in limp mode, or was in limp mode, which limits the RPM to 1700 RPM, which explains why I had no frickin' power whatsoever. And the second one is saying that there's a problem with the drive-by-wire system. Basically, the computer is not seeing what it wants to see from the throttle, and the communication isn't there. But it was obviously intermittent because it came right back on again. So, Saturday I did a little look and a little investigation and whatnot. But I knew, so I cleared those codes Saturday, and then Sunday I took the bike to Cars and Coffee, because I know that one of the guys that comes to Cars and Coffee is one of the best bike mechanics I know. And sure enough, I figured he'd have an answer. So he says behind this fairing is a plug that is most commonly known to be the issue. So we're going to try to find it today. So now that the fairing's off and we can do some digging here, this is our plug that we're looking for. It is a 6-wire plug, and this is running up to the throttle control basically. It plugs into this guy here. So it's got 2 duplicate wires, or 2 sets of 3 red, white, and black wires. In this is 6 wires. 2 of the wires are a 5-volt reference, so there's 5 volts on one wire and then 5-volt negative on the other wire. 2 of the wires run down to the throttle positioning sensor, basically telling that thing what to do. And then the other 2 wires are basically, I think they call them a high throttle and a low throttle. Basically what it's doing is those 2 wires have to equal 5 volts. So it has a 5-volt reference going to it. And as you twist the throttle, one wire is going to have, for example, 4 volts. So let's say the high throttle has 4 volts. That means the low throttle has to have 1 volt. They have to equal 5 volts between the two. So if one's a 2.5, the other one has to be a 2.5. If the computer sees a difference in those 2 wires, or it's not seeing the 5-volt equivalent basically, it's going to throw the check engine light on and throw it into limp mode. So now that I know this, he said the most common issue is this plug. The pins are not, seated correctly, or they're just a little loose. So what I was also looking at is if you watch the video, you know this bike was wrecked right here. And I noticed when we were tearing it apart that this one has a yellow casing on it, and this wire was kind of chewed up. And I can see a little bit of wear on the black wire right here and the white wire. And it's hard to see without the light, but this wiring was pinched underneath of this wiring, actually rubbing on the headset of the bike right here. So I think what I have going on here is a short to ground. I think that wire was getting pinched on that headset. And when I backed this thing out of the parking spot down there, I was parked like uphill in a parking lot. So I rolled the bike back down into the road and turned the bars hard left to turn, because I was going downhill and then backing downhill again. It was kind of crazy. But as soon as I started it, that check engine light came on and then instantly went away. So I feel whatever it was something to do with the bars turning. And now that I know what those wires are and I see where they were, I think that might be my problem. But just to be safe, I think I'm going to look into, what I did was just take a small pick and I went down on the side of this white insert here and kind of pried it loose on this side, and then very gently I'm just going to slide that out of there. And that's going to leave the 6 terminals where this has the pins, and this is basically the female side. So I think what I'm going to do, since the bike's apart, I'm going to very carefully slide each one of these wires out and just give it a little pinch with a needle nose pliers, just to put a little more pressure on the connection point, and then carefully put this back in there and plug it back in. I'm also going to pull the plug off of the throttle body on the side of the bike behind the air filter there, and make sure all the wiring there, make sure there's no issues there. But I really feel, since the bike was wrecked up in this area and I see those wires being chafed like that, it's very minor. I don't know that it's shorting out, but it's very possible that it's shorting out just for a split second. So we're going to get those couple things taken care of, and then we'll go from there. Well, we put a little black tape on those, just those two wires. Like I said, it's very, 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 very minor. I don't know if that was the issue or not, but put a little tape on those. Obviously, we zip tied things up a little better, rerouted things a few different ways to try to, so it doesn't get pinched in that headset. I guess we'll just see if we at least didn't make it any worse, I guess, huh? Well, it starts and it runs, but honestly, it did before I tore it apart too, so it's not really saying a whole lot, because unfortunately this kind of a issue as far as intermittent, you don't know if you got it fixed or not. All you can do, put it together, ride it, see if it does it again. But like I said, I have some confidence that that's where the issue was, just because those wires were chafed. Very slightly, like I said, and it was obviously damaged right there in the crash. So by rerouting that, I'm going to assume that we have the problem taken care of. But like I said, we're not going to know. Get in there, girl. We're not going to know until we ride it, and that's not going to be for a few days. So, well, it's the next day, which is what, Thursday, I think. And I will say that we did not make it better. We made it worse. So basically I put it all back together because I thought we were done. And when I turned the handlebars all the way to the right, this thing jacked the throttle. Not a little. I mean, it jacked it hard, which is almost impossible with a drive-by-wire system, because it has to see a certain voltage on one set of wires and then the equivalent voltage on the other set of wires. We're seeing 4 volts on one wire, it's got to see 1 volt on the other wire. So how did it jack the throttle? I don't know. So what we did was ripped it all apart. At that point I was pretty pissed off at it, so I just shut the camera off. We pulled all the wiring out, pulled the dash apart, pulled the radio out, pulled the frickin' bars off it, pulled the twist sensor out of the bars, which totally sucked. Got it out on the bench. Here, I'll show you. So this is the old twist sensor. Goes in the end of the handlebar. Pretty simple. And I assumed at that point that we had, excuse all the silicone, mess and oil down here. I assumed we had some damage in this wire where it goes up into the handlebar. And I couldn't see anything, so I just ripped the whole thing out, pulled the twist sensor out of it, and still, even when it's out, I don't see anything obviously wrong with any of the wiring. So with that being said, I didn't find anything wrong with the old twist sensor, but I thought, you know what, it's torn apart. So I called the local Harley shop. I called 2 of them actually, and they both had a new twist sensor in stock. So I ran to town last night. They closed at 6. I got there like 10 till. Grabbed that, and then I went to the races for the night. And then I came home about 11 o'clock, grabbed a beer, put the new sensor in, started putting it back together. Finished it up this morning. I did bypass that 6-pin plug, eliminated that altogether. And then I also cleaned the throttle body sensor, which is right down here behind the air cleaner. Got this little plug right here. So I pulled that out, cleaned it, sprayed out with some contact cleaner, stuck a Scotch-Brite in there, shuffled some stuff around basically, put some dielectric grease in there, just a little bit. So from there, I basically just put the fairing back on. The motor's warm right now, but I got some oil and stuff on here. I just took the bike for like a 20-minute rip up and around the neighborhood, I'd say. Put about probably 15 miles on it, and it's ran better than it's ever ran since I've owned it, which has only been 6 weeks. But the throttle response is 100% more responsive. It always had like a little delay when you crack the throttle, which is kind of common on a drive-by wire, but it's a lot better than it was. And other than that, so far, no check engine light. everything's running great. So basically, I think that's it for this one. We're going to, there's not much more I can do but ride it. So we're going to go for a ride tonight, put about 100 miles on it, see how it does. I don't think squeezing those little plug terminals made a difference. If anything, I think it made it a little worse. So I just eliminated the plug altogether. And the problem had to be in the twist throttle, because there's no way you can turn the bars to the right and make that thing jack the throttle. I mean, not without a cable. It'd have to be cable driven to do that. This thing has to see an accurate voltage. And when it did crack the throttle, the check engine light came on. It was being way stupid. So I think the problem was in the twist throttle and a little bit in that plug. So basically, by eliminating that, hopefully we eliminated the problems. So basically, now that I replaced all that stuff, we put about 100 miles on this bike yesterday. We stopped three different stops, normal situations, and the bike never backfired. It never spit when I went to leave. The throttle response is a lot better, even like like the little whiskey throttle when you give it a little crack between gears or whatever. It is much more responsive. So I really feel we had an issue with that throttle, and it might have been down here on that throttle body, that plug being dirty too. So hopefully all these problems are solved. But yeah, we got 100 miles on. It ran great. So hopefully, if you're having these kind of issues, this video will help you get your bike back up and going. Other than that, we're just going to keep riding it. So anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys subscribing and liking and all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you on the next one, okay? Thanks, guys.